Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. You know, when talking about the environment, it's one of Maitreya's biggest priorities, right? I mean, his first priority is sharing the world's resources to create justice, to create peace. So peace in the mind of the masters of Maitreya is the single biggest thing that we could accomplish at this time, right? And end all war forever. Second, by very close margin, is we got to do something about the environment. We got to aid and help the environment and stop abusing the environment, the way that we have been. Now, it's a very polarizing discussion when you talk about the environment. It's a lot like talking about your favorite college football team in the South, where people just dig their heels in for no reason, and they don't want to hear anything that you have to say, and they're right and you're wrong, or you're right and they're wrong, or whatever. And it doesn't need to be like that. Now, as an example, right? This was a couple Decembers ago, maybe three. I think it might have been 3 years ago. I can't remember the exact December, but I saw this lady. She was a total stranger. I saw her in public, and I smiled and literally just said hello. Because I'm a friendly guy. I like to say hello to strangers, but it drives my wife crazy. But anyway, I say, hey, how you doing? Right? But I didn't even say, how are you doing? I said, hey, how are you? I said, hello. And she starts talking about how this is the warmest December on record at the time. Like I said, it was like 2 or 3 years ago. And then she literally starts heating up her tone and starts screaming at me, saying that global warming is a hoax. It doesn't exist. Believe me, don't listen to the lies. It's a hoax. It's a hoax, I tell you. And she started it and ended the whole conversation just like that. And I literally did not say anything to her but hello. And I was kind of in shock, like, why is this woman yelling at me, right? But that's kind of how people are. And when it comes to the argument of climate change, right? I know enough about high school debates, because I was on the debating team for a time, that you have to, anybody can argue either side of the issue. It doesn't take a lot of energy and a lot of research to really do that, where you can argue for, pro something and then against it, right? Because that's what you have to do when you're on the debate team, right? You have to kind of do those kind of things. So like I said, it doesn't take a lot of work. So people can throw facts either, that prove their side either way. Now, the masters would say that it's not 100% zero either way. That, yes, part of it is man-made, but they would say it's only about 20%, or not man-made, natural causes. Only about 20% of the raising of the temperature is really due to natural causes. And even though scientists, take these ice core samples, oh, look at this, at this point it was probably this temperature or whatever like this. And now, because they can tell by the way the ice melts and all that kind of stuff, I don't know, it's above my head, right? But they can prove it their way, right? That it's just natural causes, right? Because there were times when the atmosphere heated up and cooled off and all that kind of stuff, right? Now, the other thing is that they would say that about 80% of it is caused by greenhouse gas emissions, or in the chopping down of trees and all sorts of stuff, right? So man is at fault to this, and we should look at stopping it so that we don't ruin our kids' future and our children's future and our children's children's future and so forth, that we are able to sustain an environment like this. So I don't think the masters would say, 100% zero on either side, but yes, it's an important issue, but yet be concerned and act, but don't panic about it, because there is time. That's the other side of it, right? Now, they would also say that environmentally, the biggest damage that we are doing is our nuclear programs, whether it's nuclear testing, missile testing, the way we store the nuclear power, the waste, to the way that we power our power plants and so forth around the world. That's causing the most damage. Now, you could argue it either way, right? I mean, there's scientists with a lot of letters after their name that would say, no. According to the Geiger counters, everything's safe. Well, That's not even entirely true, because what if there's an earthquake like in Japan, or Chernobyl? I mean, so it's not 100% safe either way. So I don't buy that argument. But even if what the masters are saying is not true, right? That there is no higher level above gas, and they call it the etheric. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that the masters are wrong, right? Well, it's not 100% safe way of doing anything, because, like I said, if there's an earthquake or a typhoon, like there was not a typhoon, but what do you call it? A tidal wave or whatever, or tsunami, like there was in Japan, that caused that problem, or a meltdown or something like this, it can be very, very dangerous and permanent. And not to mention, just having nuclear missiles around that we could destroy ourselves is bad enough as it is, right? But yet, according to the masters, just the way that we process the plutonium and the uranium is a very, very dangerous, and it's polluting our environment worse than even global warming is doing. Now, let's just say let's just say, for the sake of argument, because I like to argue things either way, even in my mind, right? That both those theories about the environment are not true. Let's say that global warming is 100% natural causes and nuclear power is 100% safe. Well, you can't really deny it, because you can see it, that there's air pollution out there. I mean, just fly over a major city and you see this brown haze. Just go up to a high hill, right, and look at LA. Because I know when I flew into LA when I was a kid, man, it was like, oh my gosh, man, I have to breathe this for the next few days? This is awful, right? And a lot of times you're coughing, you're sneezing, your eyes, are watery and stuff like this. It's all due to air pollution. So, we're polluting the environment some kind of way, right? Just as, 100 or so years ago, yeah, you could take a bucket and stick it in a stream, and, your whole family could drink from it, and nobody would get sick. But now, I mean, my God, man, if you did that, whew, you wouldn't be able to work for days, because you'd be on the toilet the whole time, right? Or worse, right? So you can't really deny that there's not water pollution. And then go driving down the interstate, I mean, you see trash and the way that we pollute the environment that way. I mean, it's just awful the way that we abuse the environment, right? So the argument that there's no climate change it's only one facet to the abuse of what we're doing to the environment, right? Now, maybe it is worse than, regular air pollution or water pollution, but I mean, you can't really say that, because the majority of the hospital beds in and around the world, especially in the third world, are filled with people who don't have clean drinking water, and the diseases that causes. So, and that's coming from the World Health Organization. I didn't make this up. I mean, so, I mean, do your research on that and see what you say. So, I mean, it really is kind of like they've polarized the environmental issue so much that people are only concerned about climate change, but there's all these other facets of environmental abuse that you could argue that everybody sees on a daily basis. So even if you don't see it or don't believe in climate change or nuclear power, I mean, my gosh, I mean, there's so many other ways of that, the way that we're abusing our environment, right? And it kind of reminds me, like here in Atlanta, back a decade or so ago, we had a really bad drought, and the two lakes that really the millions of people in Atlanta get their water from, one's from Lake Allatoona, which one time when I swam in it, talk about water pollution, it literally looked like Mountain Dew, or Mellow Yellow, it like the soft drink, that people drink, it looked like neon green. You can't tell me water's supposed to look like that. But anyway, and I got out of it real quick and showered off, because I was like, it really scared me. But anyway, and then there's Lake Lanier, which is on the northeast side. And so this drought hit Atlanta, and people couldn't water the yards. It was almost, they considered it a state of emergency. And then you had the deniers out there. Well, this happens all the time. What's the worry, man? Don't worry about it, right? Now, the thing that nobody asked, and I always asked this when I was talking to people about this, because people were in Atlanta were very concerned about it. Was there 7 million people here 100 years ago the last time they had a drought like this? No, right? There's over 7 million people in Atlanta now. Well, 100 or so years ago, the last time we had that same kind of drought, there was probably 100 to 200,000 people here. So you can't really compare the two crises, because of the way that the population has multiplied. It's the same thing with pollution, right? Or global warming or whatever, right? And, 30 or 40 years ago when pollution was really bad, there wasn't that many people out there. Now there's, a significant percentage more people on the planet than there was even when I was young, right? And it was bad back then. So imagine what it is now with all these million people drawing all this power, with all this consumer waste and all this stuff, and the water's poisoning and getting, and you can't drink the water, and the air's, getting poisoned because of all the air pollution and so forth. So even if global warming doesn't exist, we have to do something about that. Now, the good news is, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, but the good news is that the masters already have plans in place to help us fix this stuff. And the other good news is that the Space Brothers have been helping to sustain the environment long enough than it would normally be able to do on its own. And then the other good news is that the environment is very durable. And there's evidence of that right after the oil rig disaster in the Gulf of Mexico back, about 9 or 10 years ago, whenever it was, right, where there was just millions of barrels a day of oil spewing out into the into the Gulf of Mexico. You could see it from space, from satellite photos from space. Well, now there's hardly any evidence that it even existed, if any. And people thought that was going to be the end of everything, of the oceans and stuff, and it wasn't. I mean, it was bad, you know what I'm saying? I mean, but yet the environment has a natural way of healing itself. So that's the other good part of the news. So there is good news, and yes, it is natural, but yes, we have to tackle it together. The other thing too is, like I said, is Maitreya will tell you that the people always are the driving force for change, not the government. We cannot rely on them anymore. We have to rely on ourselves. We have to tell our leaders that we want the change. And right now, the voice isn't strong enough. And Maitreya being out on TV is helping to galvanize that voice for change. So we'll start to see these changes in this kind of thing. So there's good news all around, but yet it's bad. Should it be concerned? Absolutely. We shouldn't just not do anything about it. But yet at the same time, it's okay. We're going to be fine. We're going to get through this. And we're going to learn our lessons and not do this anymore, ever, right? But, and as always, take action. Help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos. Have a great day.